implement a couple of data access objects, right? So what the data access object is going to do is going to provide a higher level API that's going to wrap this low level API. We don't want to have to deal directly, and then it exports that high level API to the rest of the application, right? So that the rest of the application doesn't have to deal with this low level idiosyncrasies of whatever underlying framework, whatever underlying database you're talking about, right? The data access objects allow you to create this disconnect or this decoupling, right, of these two worlds, right? So that the rest of the application doesn't have to necessarily know that underlying is a non-relational, mongoose or MongoDB, whatever, right? We could later on refactor and move over to some other database, but leave the DAO intact, right? So that the rest of the application doesn't have to be rewritten, for a specific database. Make sense? The DAO allows us to create that interface that decouples those two worlds. Right. So for instance, let's start creating, for instance, a find all users. Right. That'd be something that I'd like in my DAO. So let's go in my DAO here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to declare these functions. We're going to say find all users is going to be a function that is going to return the user model dot find. Remember, this is an implicit return. Yes, this is the same as saying this, right? Return. Yes, right. But again, we can. I'm lazy, and ES6 allows me to be lazy. So this is going to return the promise, right? The promise that find returns, and whoever receives it is going to just handle that promise. Okay. All right. So this is going to be the API that we want to expose. We don't want to expose this low-level API, right? Instead, we want to expose this higher-level API. Make sense? All right. So instead of exposing this, we're going to export an object. We'll export an object that's going to be a map. The map is going to be, this is the key, and the value is the function, right? So that anybody who wants to use this, calls is going to import or is going to require this function. What they're going to get is this map, yes, and they're going to use this key to be able to use the finder methods in here, all the functions in here. Make sense, right? Now again, this is way too much text to write. Right, and a good developer is a lazy developer. So the new ES6 syntax allows us to have these shortcuts, right? Where you don't have to have where the map, the key, and the value are the same, right? You can have this annotation where it's just the field that you're exposing, right? And it's a map where the key and the value have the same same text. Okay, so that's what's being exported. So let's try it out. Let's test it. So from here, the DAO is no longer has access to this low-level find one. It's no longer available. Instead, it has access to the high-level API DAO.find all users, right? And then we can just use the same then here, to display all the users. Yes, right? So if we run this again, we have the same users as before. Make sense? But I no longer have access to the low-level stuff in there. But I don't want to. I want to have this higher-level API. Okay. So yeah. So there's the find all users, and here you would add all the various CRUD operations that would be available that you want to access. Right. So we can keep going. So there's certainly the DAO certainly wants to have other things in here, such as find user by ID that takes as argument a user ID. Again, the parentheses is optional if it's only one parameter, right? 2 characters less to type. So here you can say find by ID. There's user model. You can say find user model, and here you can put a as a filter, you can say that I want the ones that have whose ID is equal to user ID. Yes, right? And I'm going to export that as well. Right, so that from our test, I'm just going to comment that out. This is DAO.find user by ID. I don't remember any of the IDs. Let's see. Do I have find user somewhere? No. db.user.find.pretty. All right, so let's retrieve Ada here. So that's the ID for Ada, and here I can pass a string. That's another thing that Mongoose does for me, right? It maps the IDs to that underlying object ID data type, right? So it's transparent to me, and I can still do a .then, and then presumably this is going to be the user coming back, and then I'm just going to display here the user. Right, so if we run that, notice that it returns Ada, right? But there's one problem. Notice the square brackets. It's an array because on the line we're using find, and find always returns an array. So really, we would like it'd be nice, but thankfully there's a syntactic sugar for that, right? We could use find1, which we used earlier. We could use find1 because we know that that ID is a primary key, and that certainly would work. Right, returns just 1, right? But there's another syntactic sugar, right? Finding something by its primary key is such a common thing to do that there's a syntactic sugar for that, right? So there's a find by ID, and you don't have to provide the ID because it's understood that you are comparing against the underscore ID. It's obvious, right? So that if you run it, you get the same object. Make sense, right? So then when would you use find1? Well, when you're comparing against something that is not the primary key, but you know it's unique, like the username, right? So you would have things such as find user by username, right? So that would be username, and then here you would say in your user model, and that's find1, right? And filter by username, right? And then expose that as well. So that so this would be find by username, and the username is Ada, and run Ada, and there's Ada, right? But the username, but it's just only one. Make sense? Everybody good? All right, excellent. So let's keep going. So we have the find user by ID, retrieve it. Okay, so find by ID, find by username. There it is, right? And then just find1. All right, so let's get into something a little more interesting.